Welcome to Sports Update with Steve Overmyer.
And welcome to the show, and we're starting things off talking about the Mets. Now, we all know it's a long, grueling season. You can't win the World Series in April, but April kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season. And in the first 2 weeks, the Mets have had to endure a steroid suspension and an injury to their captain. But it's also forced them to rally around one another. And they're giving their fans a reason to come to the ballpark. You wouldn't know that this is a team that's missing their captain. Jacob deGrom sitting down 8 batters in 7 scoreless innings. Wilmer Flores basically putting the game to bed in the 6th. The Mets open up a 5-0 lead right now. It is 5-1 in the 8th inning. Yankees-Rays, Masahiro Tanaka giving up a leadoff single and then retired the Knicks 15 straight. Tampa's Jake Odorizzi wasn't too bad himself. Brian McCann, though, got his number. 8 for 13 for his career with 2 homers, and this is a 2-run triple in the 6th. And Mets cast off. Chris Young just left the yard for a grand slam. It is now 9-0 Yankees in the 8th. Keeping up to date with what's going on with the Rangers. Right now, the Rangers are tied at 1 with the Penguins in the second period. Both teams coming out very defensive, combining for just 8 shots in the opening period. The Rangers, with a win, gives them a big 2-0 lead. And one of the things we don't see in the playoffs is what is considered by some as the greatest ending in hockey, the shootout. Marc Rosenman has been a broadcaster since 1979. He has co-authored a new book called Shoot to Thrill, The History of Hockey Shootouts. Marc Rosenman, welcome to the studio. Good to see you again, my friend. I've been on your radio show a couple of times, Sports Talk New York. It's good to have you in studio to talk a little bit about this.
Thanks for having me, for sure.
All right, so we're talking about the shootout, something that really originated after the lockout. What was the genesis of this? Why did the NHL want to go to this?
The genesis was that you have a disenfranchised fan base after any strike, and when they wanted to go see hockey, they couldn't. So the NHL wanted to give something back, some sort of excitement, something to get the fans motivated to come back to the game, and that's what it was. It was a gimmick, and it still, in some respects, is a gimmick for the game because it's an individual skills competition as opposed to a team concept, which is what the game is.
You know, and as Americans, we hate ties, right? I mean, we don't like the games to end in a 1-1 draw. We want to have a winner. We want to have a loser.
They do. People pay their money for a ticket. Some of the players, Henrik Lundqvist, in fact, says, you know, I come to the rink, I play hard for 2.5 hours. I want to leave with some sort of resolution. Yeah. And that's the king himself.
But do you think that it's helped hockey?
In some respects, yes. In some respects, no. I think right now the shootout's getting a little tired. I think it's inflated numbers as far as standings. It's decided who goes to a playoff. The Rangers were eliminated last game of the season, and the Flyers ended up going to the playoffs, and the Flyers made a cup run. They went all the way to the finals. And the only reason why they were there was that one shootout win against the Rangers.
That's right. That 1 point separating. So it changes history.
Absolutely.
It has changed history. And like you said, it changes stats too, because a goalie will get a victory for a shootout win, but the shooter doesn't get a goal.
Does not get a goal. Yeah. It does not. And, you know, if he got a penalty shot, which is essentially the same skill, it's one-on-one during a game, he gets a goal. But if you have 10 shootout goals that won 10 games, it's not a game-winning goal, and it's not a shootout. It's not a goal. It doesn't count for your points.
In all the research that you've done in this, you've talked to a number of broadcasters, former players, current players, owners, Gary Bettman, Matt Harvey, apparently.
Of course. As a Ranger fan, you have to get Matt in the Dark Knight.
So, yeah. Was there a group that absolutely loved the shootout, and was there a group that hated it?
It's funny. A lot of people, like Don LaGreca, started liking the shootout when it first came, and now he feels it's tired. The older people, and I consider myself an older person now.
Where do you draw that line?
It's right about where I am now, unfortunately. You know, liked it in the beginning, but now like the old way. The younger people, the younger players, like the fact that they leave the rink with a determination. So it is the younger people that like it. But across the board, everyone would like to see some tweaks. Brad Park had a revolutionary idea. Brad Park said, you know, to appease the fans, have the shootout every single game before the start of the 3rd period. So this way, if the game is tied going into the 3rd period, and the team already that lost the shootout knows that they're not going to get a point unless they really go for it in the 3rd period, then they're going to go for it. So that was a revolutionary idea. When he first told me, I said,
Boy, that's completely new. That's the thing is, you know, that would change your approach in the third period. And what we've seen is that this is changing your approach in overtime. If you have a team, if you know that you've got a lot of great shooters on your squad, you might play a little bit more defensive in overtime.
Absolutely. It also changes the way teams construct their rosters. You take a look at Rob Schremp, who was a shootout specialist. He probably stayed in the NHL 2 years longer with the Islanders because of his shootout skills. And it is very interesting. When we first, Howie and I, thought about this idea, we really didn't know how interesting it was going to be for us, finding out certain things and the way GMs, announcers, players all viewed the shootout.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this almost feels like really the early conversations with the DH in Major League Baseball. Which, by the way, is not even a conversation anymore. It's not. There's no controversy. It is what it is.
It's a perfect correlation.
Yeah. Does it seem like there are a lot of people that have, I guess, changed their minds on this? You mentioned Don LaGreca.
People like the shootout, obviously, the excitement, but in the same respect, everyone loves the team concept of hockey. And when you start boiling it down to winning and losing based on 3 guys on your roster, it takes away the team concept. So that's where I think the purist steps away and says we have to figure out a better way.
You mentioned that it changes history. Like I said, it changes stats as well. Marty Brodeur is a man who played in this era where shootouts were going to be able to give you a goalie victory. Now, he has 150 more wins than Patrick Waugh. It's not like this is going to be the difference between whether or not Marty Brodeur would be the winningest goalie in history, but it certainly pumps up his stats a little bit, doesn't it?
And also Henrik. And Henrik is the king, and I take nothing away from Henrik because I've had the opportunity to see him play since he got here. But every year he's won 30 wins. But those 30 wins also, some years he was unbeatable in the shootout. He had 10, you know, this year a little less, not so much because of the injury as well, but his numbers, those 30 wins aren't the same as back in the day with Eddie Jockman or Gilles Villemure or even Mike Richter, because they didn't get those wins. They were ties. That was it. Game ended, it was a tie. You don't get a win.
Well, it certainly is fascinating, and it doesn't seem like it's done yet. I mean, where do you see hockey evolving to with the shootout rules?
They're trying to eliminate the frequency of the shootout. So what they're trying to do, and they test market it in the AHL, is they'll go to overtime, but they'll start off 4-on-4, then go down to 3-on-3, and that will most likely eliminate a fair percentage of the games that go to shootout because they will be determined in overtime. So that's the first step. The thing is that then there's been bandied about different point levels like they do in soccer, where you get 3 points for a regulation. It'd be way too confusing to look at the standings. People, even now with the regulation, you know, in overtime wins, people are confused what the tiebreakers are. So I think that's the first step, and I think that's what we'll see for quite a while.
You've done all this research. Did you go in with an opinion, and did it change by the end of it?
I went in with the opinion that I was okay with the shootout, and now I'm not. So it did definitely change my mind, speaking to the players and coaches and GMs and announcers, and the more, you know, I did like the ties. I was not a problem, except for tonight.
I was going to say today, no tie.
No ties. No ties in hockey.
There's no ties in hockey. Well, it's certainly an opinionated book. Can't wait to read this. Thank you so much for coming in. The book is Shoot to Thrill, the history of hockey shootouts. Plenty of opinions in this book, and can't wait to read it. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, recently a number of high-profile players or people have voiced their displeasure with college basketball's one-and-done rule. But how big of a problem is this, and why is it only concerning college basketball? We'll investigate and give our thoughts when the Sports Update comes back.